Hi, sixth graders. This is Mrs. Hebert, and today we're going to be working with Lesson 8.3, Solving Percent Problems. I believe these should be pages 41 and 42 in your notebook. So if you want to add this lesson to your table of contents, go ahead and do so. Okay, to set up your paper for this lesson, you're going to have three wide sections. So you need three sections. The top and bottom sections need to be a little bigger than the middle section. Okay, so in box number 1, we're going to talk about finding a percent of a number, and we're going to use two different methods. The first method is by setting up a proportion, which is called proportional reasoning, and the second method is using multiplication. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at 30% of 400. They give us the percent and they give us the whole. They don't give us the part what 30% is. So that's what we're solving for. So 30%, anytime you have a percent that you change into a fraction, it goes over 100. So this becomes 30% becomes 30 over 100. Then I set it up with an equivalent fraction. And we say the whole is 400 because 400 is my total. So this is the whole. And what we're looking for is the part. So what is 30% of 400? What is that part equal to? And so this becomes x, and I'm solving for x. So then I just look at it as a proportion and I say 100 times 4 gives me 400. So 30 times 4 will give me 120. So x equals 120. So 30% of 400 is 120. And that's my answer. The second way, and I'm going to just draw a line through this a little bit, is multiplication, and I'm sorry that I went over it a little bit, but is if I turn 30% and I again take it as a fraction, 30 over 100 of means multiplication, usually in math, so I change the of to multiplication, and then 400, which I think of as 400 over 1 if I want to put it in fraction form. So now I just multiply those across, and 30 times 400 is 12,000, and 100 times 1 is 100. And then I'm going to divide that, and one thing you can do is cross out zeros to make it a little easier, which becomes 120 over 1, which is 120, and I get the same answer. However, there's another way to use multiplication, and that is by turning the percent into a decimal. And if you recall, the way we turn a percent into a decimal is we imagine that there is a decimal at the end of the percent number, so 30% would be 30 with a point, and we move the decimal 2 places to the left to turn a percent into a decimal. And so it becomes 0.30 or 0.3. And then I can take that and I can say 0.30 or 0.3 times 400, and that will give me, if I do the math, it will end up giving me 120. So whichever way I go, whether I use one of the two multiplication methods or I use the proportional reasoning method, I find out that 30% of 400 is 120. And don't forget that you need to check for reasonableness. So one of the things I can do is I can say, well, I'm not sure what 30% of 400 is, but I know what 50% of 400 is. 50% of 400 is 200. So my answer should be less than 200 because I don't have quite 50%. And I can see that my answer is less than 200. And so it's a reasonable answer. And I can then, I can make sense of the answer. Okay, the second kind of percent problem that you're going to be given or asked to solve is finding a percent when they give you the part and the whole. So now what they want you to do is determine the percent. So this time they give you the part. So for example, they say $120 is what percent of $2,000? So $2,000 is my whole. And that's really one of the things you have to figure out when you're trying to solve any percent problem is what number represents the part and what number represents the whole. So out of $2,000, I have $120. So $120 is my part. And $2,000 equals my whole. What I want to know is what percentage is $120 out of 100%. 100% would be $2,000, right? So I want to find out how much 120 is. So I can set it up as a proportion because I can say, I can go part to whole. So I say 120, which is my part, over 2,000 equals, and I don't know my percent, so remember percent in a fraction always goes over 100. So I'm going to put x over 100 because I don't know the percent. And in fraction form, the percent would be some number over 100. So I have my part to whole. I'll put P for part and W for whole. And over here I have my P, which is my percent, but it's part, and then my W for whole. And then I'm going to say, okay, I can divide 2,000 by 100. And I can say, I can either turn this around to say x over 100 equals 120 over 2,000, or I can divide 2,000 by 100. I can go either way. But in this case, I'm just going to set it up this way to make it easier. And 100 times 20 gives me 2,000, which means that something times 20 will give me 120. So I can go backwards and say 120 divided by 20 gives me 6. But remember, this 6 is really 6 over 100, which gives me 6%. Because if I'm solving for percent, it goes over 100. So the answer is 6%. $120 is 6% of $2,000. And I can say, does that make sense? I'm going to check for reasonableness. Well, 10% of $2,000 would be $200. And so I have less than 10% and I have less than $200. So my answer is reasonable. Okay, in box number 3, we're going to find a whole given a part and a percent. So this time they're going to give you the part and they're going to give you the percent, and they want to know the whole, the total. So in this case, they say, okay, you have, if 12 students equals 24% of a choir, that's the part. They want to know how many students total are in the choir, which would be the whole. And remember that percent is always over 100 in fraction form. So we can start off by saying that 24 over 100 would be our first fraction because we have our percent, and that's easy to turn into a fraction. And remember that's part to whole. So over here on the other side, I'm going to go part to whole. And I don't know my whole, so my whole is going to be x, but I say 12 is my part. So I'm going to say 24 over 100 equals 12 over x. So I'm going to say, because this basically says 24% is 12 out of how many students total. So I'm going to say 24 divided by 2 will give me 12, and 100 divided by 2 will give me 50. So x equals 50 students in the choir. And I can check this by doing it a different way, and I can say 24% of 50 students should equal 12 students. And so I can turn this into decimal. 0.24 of means times 0.24 times 50. So 0.24 times 50. I bring my decimal over, and that equals 12. So I am correct. So x equals 50 students. Okay, so this is what your paper may look like, or it's going to look similar to this. In box 3, I didn't do the check on this original paper, but yours probably will include that, and that's fine. So that's really it, just the 3 different types of questions they're going to ask you when they ask you to solve percent problems, and we'll practice some more in class. Good job.